Sorry, maybe you didn't hear me. So I was saying, thank you very much, Luba. I would like to call on stage the speakers for our next session, Dr. Jaime Martinez, Dr. Eduardo AGUIñAGA, and Ms. Cristina MENCHACA to join us on stage with their avatars. And now we are going to have a session, a business education best practice, with the case studies of EGADE Business School Tecnológico de Monterrey, which topic is adapting business education to changing students' preferences and business needs. Hello, so I'm gonna introduce the moderator of our session, Dr. Jaime Martinez BOWNESS. Jaime Martinez BOWNESS is Mexico City site director of EGADE Business School at Tecnológico de Monterrey. Jaime has been an entrepreneur in the educational and social sector for 2 decades. He is founder and board member at Fundación Pro Universitaria, a nonprofit organization for youth employability that has benefited more than 40,000 university students with paid internship opportunities and scholarships. He is co-founder and co-leader of the Jóvenes de Excelencia City BOWNESS program, which has sent more than 500 low-income university students to pursue postgraduate degrees at prestigious universities abroad. He is also the founder of Jóvenes que Impactan, a nonprofit program that trains 280 young people per year in work skills in 4 cities across the country. In the past, he has established schools and several other educational projects, including profesionistas.org.mx, the most visited website in Spanish worldwide in youth employability, as well as numerous national surveys and studies on work skills and employability. Jaime is a frequent guest in national and international media and forums. He obtained an undergraduate degree in political science at ITAM, holds an MBA from Duke University, and attained certifications in continuing education from the University of California at San Diego and at Berkeley. Jaime, the floor is yours.
I will now walk to the podium and introduce the most excellent panelists that we have this morning. And again, thank you to each and every one of you in the audience. We have with us to address these interesting points and that we will be talking about in the next minutes, Cristina MENCHACA. Cristina MENCHACA, who is on the presidium, is the Human Resources Value Chain Vice President for Aeromexico, Mexico's flag carrier airline. In this role, Cristina leads a global human resources team in reinforcing a strong company culture, creating and leading large-scale employee engagement and development programs, and implementing reward and talent management strategies that support the achievement of a flawless execution of the operation and commercial areas with over 10,000 employees at Aeromexico around the globe. Before joining Aeromexico in 2018, Cristina was the HR head for Domino's Pizza in Mexico, working for Alsea in the retail industry. Previously, she had experiences in PepsiCo, Emerson, Xerox, and other national and global companies. Cristina holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and later earned a global MBA degree with us at EGADE Business School. Thank you for being with us, Cristina. And we also have Eduardo AGUIñAGA. Eduardo is the national director of our full-time programs at EGADE Business School. He holds a PhD in business administration and a master's in management from EGADE Business School, where he is also professor on corporate sustainability and circular economy. As a member of the National System of Researchers in Mexico and an active fellow of the SWIT Research Group focused on innovation and sustainable wealth creation, Eduardo's research revolves around circular economy, industrial ecology, and systems thinking. Eduardo is author of various scientific articles and book chapters on entrepreneurship, business models, and innovation as enablers for the creation of both self-sustaining communities and non-usual, non-traditional business models based on waste and residue. Previously, as circular economy leader at Heineken Mexico, Eduardo was responsible for the company's transition to this new economic model. And Eduardo is also a well sought after consultant on circular economy. Well, Eduardo, Cristina, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Let me check if you're being able to project your screens. Very good. There we are.
Jaime,
Eduardo, if you can click on the right screen, the one right above you, and share your video so that we can see you, not just hear you. Okay. Well,
yeah, sure, Jaime.
Sure. Okay. Well, in any case, while you get around to that, we can start the conversation. So, Eduardo, as the leader of our full-time master's programs, which are currently 2 at EGADE Business School, what do you believe are the main transformations that we have had to carry out at EGADE to maintain academic continuity during this challenging period of time, but to also keep our academic audiences engaged and motivated?
Excellent question, Jaime. First of all, it was really interesting to see how one of the main competencies that we have, which is a resilience that we try to, to strengthen on our students, was the one most required during this transitional time of the pandemic. I would say we can classify, or we can say that there are three type of transformations, the main transformations that we have to take into account. The first one would be a technical transformation, and the second one an operational, and I would dare to say that a third one would be a behavioral one. On the technical side, one of the things, the first things that we made was, leverage on technology. Technology has been our best ally so far, and I think for every organization and every company, tech was on our side on this transition. And one of the few things we started doing as an organization, as EGADE, for example, was, as you know, well, first of all, the acquisition of licenses and, software that could enable and to leverage on to actually create this new experience for the students. It was a swift change. I think everyone remembers that at least at EGADE, it was from one day to another, the change. It was really, really challenging for everyone, but we could do it. Then on the same technical side, I would say that in the institution, also knowing that eventually there would be a gradual return on these in-person classes, worked and evaluate all the best options for acquiring, enabling infrastructure for these hybrid classes. So knowing that we were gonna be back again to an in-person format, we already knew that we have to make some, investment. So we started focusing on, implementing or acquiring cameras, really advanced face recognition cameras, introducing spatial microphones on the classroom, even have a TV-like production sets that were also used by the professors and instructors to offer more immersive class experience. If you want to check that out, it's called the whole immersive room that we have at Tecnológico Monterrey, and also as EGADE we started using. That's from the, let's say, the technical side of the experience. But what about the operational side? Focusing more on how is it that we operate this transformation? Well, first of all, we transform the way we teach our students as well. As you mentioned, well, it was a swift change, and our students are now not sort of captive anymore, because we don't have it on the classroom. We have it, on a virtual scene. so they get distracted quite easily. We were seeing students whose attention span just lasted for 3 to 5 minutes sometimes. So we have to change the dynamics of how do we teach our students. And so we leverage a lot on our education and innovation department. At EGADE, we have this department focused on how do we provide new software, new platforms, new resources for the faculty, for the students, for everyone on the organization, and how is it that we could also change the experience of the students. So another thing that we transformed regarding the operational side was also how do we train our faculty. We have to, of course, focus on how is it that we could provide our faculty with all of these resources, because one thing is having them and knowing that they exist, but the other thing was, how is it that we can implement it effectively on the classroom. So for some professors and instructors like myself, which are millennials, it was quite easy to do this, this transition, but maybe for others, they were not experts on how to use all this technological innovation. Well, they needed support. And one of the things that we also implemented was these academic bodies. And so these are people within, the organization that helps the professors, the instructors on at the beginning of their classes, their virtual classes, on how to operate certain things, creating breakout rooms and getting everyone on the same page on the courses. And of course, we also, on the operational side, we share best practices of the faculty through, cyber. We created this cyber academic coffee among the institutional faculty to share the best practices of how to provide this experience or virtual experience with the students. We also, I like to think that we went beyond rethinking the content and the knowledge we provide to the students, but rethink the way we deliver value to them. So that was this is the second, let's say, part of the transformation, and the last transformation, I would say, it was a behavioral one, and I think we transformed also our attitude towards this pandemic and towards this change. Instead of being pessimistic or even dramatic about it, being positive and also be receptive and flexible and sympathetic with the students, also change the dynamic of as professors, we needed to transform, being, as I've already mentioned, be more flexible, rethink the purpose of our classes, and really ask ourselves what is the actual key value added for the course. And I think one of the best things that we did was debunk this myth of that there were certain things that could not be delivered, virtually, and that's one of the things that we overcome. One of these examples were, within the EGADE experience, we had boot camps, which are usually or traditionally face-to-face. We did it completely virtual since the pandemic. And so we found out that there were unexpected opportunities, so to speak, into this sort of networking with national event courses, which maybe I can later on talk to you a little bit more about.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, that's I would say these three, the technical, the operational, and behavioral transformation were the most important.
Exactly. And Eduardo, thank you so much. We're going to address at least a few of the topics that you touched on later on in the conversation. One of them is how we are inspiring students to return, because as many of our members of the audience would agree, we can't force neither students nor collaborators at organizations and at companies to return, or not necessarily do it in a forced way, but rather inspire them to return. So that's one topic. And the other one is how we're addressing the emotional needs that have always been important, but never more so than during this period. So I'd like to pass a microphone on to Cristina now. Cristina, you are not only a graduate of whom we are very proud at EGADE, a graduate of ours, but you're also a leader in the human resources area of one of the main airlines in Latin America, Aeromexico. How have you had to transform the participation of employees in continuous ongoing training as a result of remote work and the pandemic's effects?
Thank you, Jaime. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation and thank you for the moment. I'm glad to be sharing it with you and Eduardo and the audience. No? Now, transformation and the participation of continuous training. First of all, we need to acknowledge the obvious, no? That online learning has taken an unprecedented scale, no? Going from things we knew already, like e-learnings and e-classes, but now we're on a very different reality, no? We're talking more digital, more virtual, even augmentation and gamification. That's something that in Aeromexico we have worked on before, especially with our crew, pilots and flight attendants. But now we're moving into using them for more, day-to-day interactions and learning. So we are moving in that agenda. Now, digital learning has had some positives and some negatives, no, as them all. The positives, of course, for us at least, it's that it's easier to reach out for a greater amount of people. We went from, reaching groups of 25 people to more than 10,000 in a day. It's more flexible to generate individual learning paths, and flexible is something that we need now because we need short-term kind of bits of information. And number three, and this is a tricky one, it's faster to deliver the results, but in training hours. And as Eduardo was saying, it's hard to keep them engaged. It's easy for them to get distracted. Now, on the counterpart, it'd be robotic to believe that our learning should come this way. We not only need to diversify our learning and development offer, but we need to continue employees engaged in their own learning. And I believe it's something it's hard to do when you lack people interaction. So we are transforming it while taking other more drastic and flexible virtual platforms. We still need to balance it up. So at the end, it's a movement that we're going back and forth, full virtual, then we'll go back to a more human connection. And at the end, it'll be a very hybrid future.
Thank you, Cristina. And you mentioned a combination of resources and platforms and ways of delivering the content that are not only entirely remote or entirely online. And I think that we can address that in fuller detail later on in the conversation. So thank you so much for that. The pandemic, as we all know, has meant a disruption in our way of carrying out many activities, but it has also been a seismic event on an emotional level, with increasing anxiety, uncertainty, and a questioning of the purpose of our lives. On EGADE's side, Eduardo, how have we dealt with the emotional aspect of our student audiences?
Excellent question, Jaime. And this is a kind of a difficult one if you think about how important is the psychological aspects of our students. And I think one of the first things that we made on EGADE was getting closer to our students, to be open to listen to them, to know what they were going through, especially closer through the coordinations as well. Our coordinations, they are sort of the thermometer of the generation and has this really close contact with our students to see what is going on with their lives and personally and also academically speaking sometimes. And so we started having constant meetings with them, more involvement with our students in academic activities, trying to sort of emulate this dynamic that was before in a previous face-to-face interaction, but now through virtual means. I think one of the key components there was, as program director would say, personally speaking, was let the students know that they have been listened and try to follow up on all of the questions and concerns, and sometimes even their demands that they have, because they also have sort of demands on this and throughout this pandemic, and having a close also communication with the faculty to let them know that, of course, the students have been going through, in some cases or extreme cases, family loss. So this is also an important, thing to consider. Now, as an institution, regardless of being a program or director or but as an institution, I think also very well on Tecnológico de Monterrey's platforms. Tecnológico created these several platforms to enable or to help the students on the psychological side. There's a program called let's say a line or online toll-free number that's called Te Queremos, and it was an attention, a 24-hour, 7-day a week attention, psychological attention and guidance and support. Also within this Te Queremos program, there was also nutritional, legal, even economical advisory. So that provided these students also a possibility to overcome certain of these difficulties created by the pandemic. Also, another program was Cuida tu Mente, which provided a lot of resources for the students and sort of the frequently asked questions through a video. And this was really interesting because so many of us dealt with the pandemic differently. And this program also shares the best practices and recommendations to keep a healthy life, and not only psychologically speaking or emotionally speaking, but also as focusing on the physical part of it, and that leads us to another of these many of programs that's called Live at Home, where we provide the students with diverse activities, even massive open online courses, the so-called MOOCs, with free certifications and a lot of these places where you can and possibilities where it was a lot of activities focused on mindfulness and yoga classes and among many others. So overall, that was the let's say the sort of had to balance the psychological but also the physical aspects of their students.
Okay, we're getting a bit of extra audio there. I don't know whose microphone is on, but thank you, Eduardo, for that. I'd like to ask now.
Jaime, you have to open your mic again, please.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. After addressing the emotional and psychological needs of our audiences at the university and the business school, Cristina, I'd like to ask you now on the business side and with respect to Aeromexico employees, what changes have you had to implement to address the psychological and emotional health of your collaborators? Because even though that's the business perspective, I'm sure that also relates to what we're trying to do as a business school. And I promise that in the later questions, I'm going to wrap everything and connect everything into a broader vision. So if you could just share your corporate perspective on emotional health and how you're addressing that, Cristina.
Of course, Jaime. That's a harsh thing to discuss here. We could take hours, no? But companies are indeed, working a great deal on this. We're working on being a more human-centric and people-oriented organization where, first of all, we're more empathetic about our employees and what's occurring in their personal lives. We need to remain aware that people are, still taking care of a loved one, or even acknowledging that domestic violence has increased. A lot of things have changed, and we need to be aware of it because guess what? We will continue to work from home, no? And things will continue to be this way. As a matter of fact, by 2023, 40% will work at least 1 or 2 days from home versus less than 20% that we had before the pandemic. So it is a great change, and we need to tackle it being more empathetic, understanding the changes that personal life go through. Now, talking about emotional health in a specific, an important task that we're all working on is trying to reduce the mental health stigma, We're having open communications about it, and you know, employee participation in mental health offerings such as Eduardo was saying, counseling, support groups, call center, you know, psychological health education, and I'm focusing on mental health, but we have integral wellness programs that tackle, as I was saying, an integral personal and professional way. Of course, at the end of the day, this is a change of mindset, and that's where formal education jumps in. So I do think that business schools are key, you know, in normalizing a new way of leadership that can sustain a more empathetic future, as I was saying, and because you know, we don't know whatever that future may bring, you know.
Excellent, and I appreciate how you're connecting this indeed with what we're trying to do at EGADE Business School as well as other business schools. So thank you, Cristina. Eduardo, now on to you. Given, and I think this question is gonna connect with a lot of concerns and much discussion and thought amongst the audience as well. Given the increasing fragmentation of the educational offer that currently exists worldwide, both in terms of the variety of programs and courses out there, but also the institutions and players and companies that offer such training, what is the value add of a business school?
Excellent question again, Jaime. I think I agree with you that you know, educational offer has become somehow fragmented, and there's now a wide range of, you know, diversity in the options through different platforms, providers, institutions, organizations. However, I'm quite convinced that business schools provide, you know, this specific coursework geared towards specific management skills, and just thinking about, for example, you know, EGADE and business school, and what is it that we have to offer as a business school. And I think just by being accepted to a master's degree, for example, at EGADE, it is not like you only are part of this program, but you actually become part of EGADE's community. And the community composed, you know, of students and professors and business leaders and mentors, instructors. So you come to a community. And alongside with that, it's also that business schools provide these networking opportunities, both within the program, across programs, and also across organizations and institutions. Another thing that it is also important to stress is the opportunities of internationalization. And this experience, you know, for example, throughout our GNAM, the Global Network for Advanced Management, you know, partnership, we have the opportunity to provide our students with this, taking intensive international courses abroad. In this case, during the pandemic, of course, remotely. But this is also an important thing that strengthens the, you know, the networking and the international experience, which is something really valuable by the industry. Also, the linkage with the industries is also really important. We have programs that have projects directly, you know, hand in hand with companies, working on challenges and strengthening this experiential learning offering for our students. And also, one of the things that I think is sometimes overlooked is the soft skill set, you know, such as leadership, negotiation, and all of this. It is carefully embedded into the business schools courses and the curricula. So, which I think sometimes it's overlooked, but especially for a business, you know, business management, a master's degree is extremely important. And last but not least, I would say also that the constant and up-to-date, state-of-the-art topics that are created and within the business school and through their research and their operations and all of the projects that the business school has is also really important for the developing the skills of professionals and students. So overall, I think it's that the institutions and business schools are really able to provide this, let's say, or the truly life-changing experience, both professionally and personally speaking, for the students.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo. And I couldn't agree more. Cristina, as an expert on human resources, from your general point of view, and not just as a leader as an HR leader at Aeromexico, in this new stage, do you see a need for companies to continue to rely on business schools for employee training, or would you prefer more internal, organic training, that is, training provided by members of the company themselves, or a combination of both? What role do you see for one and the other, for external players such as business schools and for organic training? And might there be an ideal ratio or a proportion of each other or both?
Thank you, Jaime. It's interesting hearing Eduardo, because I agree with a lot of what he said, you know, that the value that adds a business school. So it's a good thing that we're both aligned, now in a corporate way and in an educational way. So, and to answer that, I you know, it's a short answer. I continue to believe that you know, balance between them all is the best way, you know. For example, when talking as Eduardo was saying now, no, it turns out to be the hard stuff. And it's not things that are, you know, going to be tackled by a virtual experience. And I'm talking about, you know, when organizations seeks to develop interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, you know, as Eduardo was saying, you know, negotiation skills and things like that. We're not going to be tackling it through online courses or just basic internal mentoring. So we for sure need business schools that generate a more rounded, inclusive leader that can navigate change properly, not only to shape the future, as I was saying before, but to educate the short-term change. And that's key. Things are changing too fast. We need short-term solutions.
Thank you. Thank you, Cristina. So again, you're talking about a combination, and depending on the content and the type of audience and other circumstances, well, you would choose one type of training, whether it's internal, external, and the type of delivery. Okay. Eduardo, it has certainly become cliche to say that in every crisis there is an opportunity, but I believe that is no less true. What have been, from your point of view, what have been the opportunities for EGADE in this crisis? And this might be connected with your first question your first answer to the first question I made you. So the opportunities that we have seized at EGADE during this period, and what lessons could you possibly extract from those opportunities that could be of value to the audience?
Thank you, Jaime. Yes, I think that like any other organization or company, one of the biggest opportunities seized during this pandemic was the digital transformation acceleration in this case of EGADE as well. It made us more efficient, I would say, more leaning on the making more lean certain processes, and realizing that we could do it, you know, virtually. All of these changes. However, going into more like in the academic experience, I would say one of the biggest opportunities that we have derived from this situation, it was the creation of a lot of material, and when I say material, I refer to the asynchronous material or you know, videos such as, for example, I can remember EGADE capsules, which are really short videos on certain topics, relevant topics, state-of-the-art topics that our faculty and researchers develop or elaborate for a whole community. Also, these capsules and these, you know, asynchronous material has helped us to strengthening the courses. Right now, we're in some programs we are using this asynchronous material as previous work before starting a course. For example, I don't know if we are required for the students to know about, for example, I don't know, accounting, and we just want them to know, you know, the basics of accounting. Well, they can take these certain videos or these short MOOCs on digital technology, even fintech, to as an introductory work for the following for the whole course. So I think this was one of the main opportunities. I think also one of the things that we strengthened was our network with other institutions and industries. I think that's one of the main lessons that we learned, that now we're just a click away from many stakeholders and potential allies in this sort of academic venture. And also another lesson that I would like to stress is the need to be more receptive and to quickly adapt to our changing environment. And I think this pandemic take us out of our comfort zone and make us realize that we have to adapt quickly if we want to, survive. So I would say the main or the last lesson would be to leverage on technology, be open about, doing things differently, be creative or continue being creative, and also be resourceful.
Thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. Cristina, on your side, as we begin to wrap things up and derive lessons and more broader perspectives, how has your conception of a human resources and training department changed? And if so, has there been an evolution? Do you see an evolution and what its role should be?
I do see an evolution, but I have to say, the conception itself has not changed much, not for me. The approach has, and that's where I think the evolution is. And funny, I would like to share this, but I heard somewhere that during the 2008 crisis, the CFO had its breaking through moment, no? And I think that now in the pandemic has been the CHRO momentum, sorry. So it has been our time to make changes towards what, most of us believe was the future of work. So that's where the approach changes. And the future of work is now old news. When we were talking about, more home office and things like that, we're now talking about, as I was saying before, a human centricity. When we were talking about separating professional and personal life, it is crazy now to believe that we can do that, no? We're talking now also about radical flexibility, not only the flexibility that we were talking before, but where you can have talent all over the world, and therefore a broader source of diversity as well. We're talking about reshaping the culture a different way, not towards physical location, in our case, let's say what Mexico can bring, but towards the company behaviors and its own rituals now that need to be global. We're talking about digital enablement, and not, of course, about technology platforms that we have discussed a lot about that, but in our leadership, no? And in a new hybrid sense of belonging. What do we need to do things differently in order to live in this new hybrid moment, no? Shifting talent skills, such as resilience and managing uncertainty now more than ever. So those, among other pillars, are now part of the future of work. That's where, Jaime, I believe that the approach has changed, or that an evolution has been made.
Thank you, Cristina. And I'm sure that many of the audience members belonging to different higher learning institutions are taking notes on how we can contribute to that vision that you've detailed and described for us. Eduardo, for our academic colleagues in the audience, could you suggest possibly 3 ways, to be very, very brief, 3 ways in which they could evaluate their own institution's degree of readiness in this post-pandemic world?
Sure, Jaime. I would say 3 of them would be, well, the first one would be just take a look at the tangible things, the material availability in the different formats, as it was mentioned before, on the synchronous material, asynchronous, in-person and remote, and also the infrastructure readiness of your organization. That will be the first one. The other one would be the capability of both your faculty and also the human capital to just quickly adapt to changing environments, and also, and I would dare to say, for example, our recent case of Mexico or in Latin America, it's how ready or how global are they, and how is it that they can deliver, for example, classes in English for international students, which is also an important part of it. And as a third, measure of how is it that the institution could, evaluate this degree of evolution, I would say that look at how many partnerships or synergies have you created or engaged with other institutions or companies, organizations so far. So that will be another thing that I think it's also important to acknowledge in this transition.
Well, as one last question to reach the conclusion of this panel, We are now in need of inspiring students and collaborators to return to a certain degree of presence at EGADE as well as at companies. Most of us agree, if not all of us agree, that this return should not be by force, but ideally by voluntary means. How are we inspiring students to return, in your case, Eduardo, and collaborators, employees to re-inhabit their old workspaces in the case of Cristina? So I'll ask you first, Eduardo, how are we getting students to come back to the classroom and inspiring them to do so?
Good question, Jaime, thank you. I think the first thing is that make them feel safe to return. That will be the main thing. As we were talking about, well, there was, some psychological impact about it. So making them feel safe to return would be the first thing. And also leading by example, showing that there is not only a safe return to activities, as it were, but it is also desirable to go back. And show them that we're in these transitions to this sort of new reality within this, as the pandemic is slowing down, hopefully. And also especially for students, I would say that resuming showcasing and the activities that were inherently valuable to take in an in-person format, such as, company visits versus a virtual tour. And the goodness of being able to attend an in-person and academic celebrations and events, that's also one of the things that I think it would be encouraging for our students. And for the colleagues, well, despite, as I was mentioning, the high increase in efficiency and, being a click away, also having this moment of being, in a 3D format, I would say, and in person and talk to the colleagues and discuss many things that we haven't discussed, or it is difficult through virtual means. That'll also be an important thing. I think it's not so natural to be in front of the screen for long periods of time, and I think going back to the way things were before, it has to be paced, and it has to be a transition, but it's also necessary as we have to move on.
Thank you. Now I'll just add to what you've covered, Eduardo, that we're also working on having professors design exercises and class dynamics that require students' presence. So that will also add to the incentives to actually being physically in the classroom. Cristina, on your side, how are you getting at Aeromexico employees to come back to the workplace?
Thank you, Jaime. We're all facing the same situation. We're all in the same wagon, and we're trying our best. And of course, for some people, maybe pretty good news to go back, but for others, it may bring a great deal of anxiety. What we have done, and it's a pretty easy recipe. So thank you, Jaime. There are three main things that we're doing. Number one is make them feel safe and comfortable while they're safe. So implementing a proper safety plan before bringing students or employees back, and communicate it well. And there are easy things to consider: social distancing measures, restricting the number of people allowed in elevators, restrooms, etc. And as I was saying, while it is uncomfortable, trying to make it as comfortable as possible with at least eliminating this uncertainty. Number two is designing solutions that are user-centric. Why would they want to come back? What's in it for them? What will they get out of, that they're not getting from working from home? So possibly collaboration hubs, hybrid, innovative, or creative thinking spaces. At the end, it's all about, as you were saying, inspiring students as they enter the space. So recognizing that there is something better offered to them than just being isolated in their own spaces. And number three is highlighting and communicating the benefits, just reminding them about what they have been missing. All the positives of social interaction and bonding can encourage people to return. As simple as, and I remember Eduardo saying this at the beginning, as simple as, saying in person or face-to-face social interaction generates networking. It will lead to more opportunities in your near future. So there's a lot of positives that you're missing out of when you're being home-based. No? So one thing that we cannot lose sight of is that hybrid return will have its own learning curve. As I was saying, we're all in the same wagon, and we need to be open to constantly adapt or change our strategy.
Thank you, Cristina. Well, I think that's a wrap with both of your very valuable perspectives on how at EGADE Business School, like many institutions of higher learning currently, we have reconceived and are rebuilding our graduate programs to take on the challenges, the new needs, even the emotional upheaval that the past couple of years have brought on the world, and how we're also striving to continue to transform lives, but also prove to be true allies of business firms, startups, and purpose-driven organizations, such as Aeromexico, one of Latin America's most important airlines in these times. Well, again, thank you, Cristina MENCHACA, HR Value Chain Vice President for Aeromexico, and Eduardo AGUIñAGA, National Director of our full-time degree programs at EGADE Business School. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaime.
Thank you.